Okay, I know last time I said it was chapter 24, but it wasn't. Today is chapter 24. The fun and success of Christmas had me thinking a lot about Stagecoach Pass. The park had gotten old and tired. Everyone in town had visited at one point and didn't feel the need to come back. There was no draw. Even the food at the steakhouse probably got old because they only served a few different things. Something needed to change over there, or we wouldn't be in Stagecoach Pass for very long, and then who knew where we would go? My parents were so busy keeping up with all the little tasks that went into running the place that they didn't have time to see the bigger picture. But I did. As we sat down one chilly January night for dinner together, I told them some of my ideas. You know, I walked through Stagecoach Pass yesterday and I counted 17 empty storefronts. 17. Dad sighed. I know, the place is like a ghost town. It makes the place look sad, I said. We need to get some stuff in here for people to do, stuff for people to buy. It takes money to fill the buildings with employees and merchandise, Mom said. I frowned. Can't we take out a loan? I heard you have to spend money to make money. Dad laughed. Where'd you hear that? On a commercial. Well, that may be true sometimes, Dad said, but I think the park already took out a couple of loans just to keep it going. I'd have to talk to Gary about that, but I don't think it's an option. Isn't there some other way to get stuff in here? I asked. Dad took a swig of his water. I suppose we could rent the spaces, but then we'd have to worry about finding businesses and what kind of businesses should be allowed to rent here. Of course, I said. We would want it all to be cowboyish. I eyed both of them. You know, I've been writing ideas down for a little while now, ideas for the park. We'd love to hear your ideas, sweetie. I went back to my room, grabbed my notebook, and returned to the table. I opened it with my toes. Things that Stagecoach Pass needs to bring in for business, I read aloud. Number 1, a lighter food option. We have a steakhouse for a big, fat, heavy, greasy meal, and we have a soda shop for a large ice cream sundae when you only ask for a single cone, but there's no deli or sandwich shop or anything like that for a nice little lunch. I could tell they liked the idea, so I went on. Number 2, coffee and smoothies. Whenever Mom and I go shopping, I notice the mall always has some kind of coffee or smoothie place. Number 3, more shopping. Navajo jewelry, like the earrings you bought me, a cool leather shop, a hat store that specializes in custom cowboy hats, stuff like that. Wow, Avon, Dad said, those are all great ideas. It's just complicated, honey. How's it complicated? Well, Mom said, for one thing, how do we even find these vendors? I shrugged and went back to eating my dinner. Sorry my ideas had fallen flat. Then I remembered Mr. Jeffries, my art teacher, telling us about an art festival in town called Fountain Hills that was happening next weekend. He encouraged us all to go and check out the local artists' work. There's a giant art festival in Fountain Hills next weekend, I said. There'll be like 500 artists. Maybe we could find some cool vendors there. Mom and Dad looked at each other. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to go check it out, Mom said. Might be fun. And what if we had our own art festival, I said, getting excited now, with artists and food and music and fireworks? Mom and Dad both laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Dad said. But I couldn't help it. My mind was going crazy now. It's a great opportunity for the artists to check out Stagecoach Pass and see if they might want to rent a space here. Main Street is huge. We could have a huge art festival. We should have it by early April before it gets too hot out. Oh, and I saw this show about food trucks and slow down, Sheebs, Dad said. How about we start with visiting this festival and see how it goes from there? But if we're going to have our own art festival, the best way to let the other artists know would be to tell them at this art festival in Fountain Hills. I'd have to get approval before doing anything, Dad said. You mean from the dead owner? Dad laughed. Avon, the owner is not dead. And yes, I'd have to get approval from the very much alive owner. But I thought you said he gave you total free rein over the park. Well, there are also permits and a whole bunch of other stuff to take care of, Dad said. Then get on it, Daddy-o. Time's a-wastin'. He looked at me with pride in his eyes. My daughter, the ultimate problem solver. You have trained me well, Jedi Master, I said. Very good, Jedi learner person. I rolled my eyes at him. Not quite, Dad. Zion's parents would have come with a way better comeback. So, speaking of dead owners, Mom said, what's going on with your top secret investigation? Find any more clues about the Kavanaughs? Not really. The guitar was the last thing we found. The boys had brought it up to the apartment for me, and I'd shown it to my parents. They thought it was pretty cool, but it didn't really tell us anything about the Kavanaughs, and just because the last initial was C didn't mean it belonged to a Kavanaugh. But you know how I told you Henry always talks to me like he thinks I'm someone else? They nodded. Well, he called me Avon Kavanaugh on Christmas Eve. Don't you think that's kind of weird? Mom and Dad looked at each other. That is mildly intriguing, said Dad. Strange, said Mom. But he did call me Elizabeth Taylor the other day. She ran a hand through her long dark hair. Easy to see how he could make that mistake, of course. I had no idea who Elizabeth Taylor was, but Dad said absolutely, and he carried his empty plate to the sink. I have to go check out the old building with the broken-down bull. One of the workers told me they peeked in the window and saw a bunch of mice running around. The keys in the office are all such a mess. I hope I can figure out which one opens it. What keys? I asked him. Keys to the park, he said. The most important ones are all labeled, but there are about 50 that I have no idea what they're for. I have a feeling I'm going to be there all night trying to figure it out. I didn't know you had all those keys, I said. Of course I have keys, Sheba. I can't run the place without keys. Well, it just so happens that we're looking for keys. Chapter 25. It was a rare, icy cold winter day as Connor, Zion, and I sat outside the office on the sidewalk eating our lunches. Fruit snack, please, I said, and Connor shoved one in my mouth. Mom had insisted I wear my old warm boots today, and though I was glad my toes weren't freezing, it was highly inconvenient. I looked at my friends, both shivering as they took bites of their sandwiches. This is ridiculous, I said. We should be eating in the cafeteria today. They looked up at me in alarm. I had to admit I didn't feel ready to head there myself, despite the freezing wind. We can stay here. They both let out a sigh of relief. So Dad told me he's going to try to get the keys in the office as organized as possible. Then he'll let us try out the ones he can't figure out. I bet one of them goes to the desk. I wonder what's going to be in there, said Zion. I chewed on a fruit snack and gulped. Maybe a murder weapon. Zion shivered. I hope not. I hope so, I declared. Then we can turn it in to the police, and then they'll get the fingerprints off of it, and then they'll bust the murderer, and we'll all be in the newspaper. And the murderer will be like, I could have gotten away from this if it weren't for those nosy kids. Zion and Connor both frowned at me. I don't want to be in the newspaper, said Zion. Me either, said Connor. And I think you've watched too much Scooby-Doo. I scowled. Sometimes these guys were a total buzzkill, and I had watched a lot of Scooby-Doo. I decided to change the subject. So, we've had hundreds of artists call about the festival, so many that we've had to turn some away that don't fit with the Stagecoach Pass theme. Seriously, like, who wants to buy something called a diaper cake? No thank you, I'll stick with chocolate. Zion nodded. Yeah, that's gross. Disgusting, Connor agreed. We need to find a band now, I said. Any ideas? Shouldn't be too hard to find one, Connor said. Just look online. Then he raised an eyebrow at me. Maybe you should perform, Avon. I looked at him in disbelief. Is that supposed to be a joke? My earmuffs slipped down a little and Connor pushed them back up on my head. No, he said, I think it'd be cool. Zion looked at me. What do you play, Avon? The guitar, Connor answered for me. But she won't play for anyone. I think she might be lying about being able to play. I shoved Connor with my foot. Shut up. He laughed. Well, then play a song at the festival. It'll be so cool. What do you care? I said. You're not even coming. Zion's head jerked to Connor. You're not coming? Connor shrugged. I don't know. Avon thinks there's going to be like thousands of people there. Zion stared at him. So? Connor gaped at him. So? That's thousands of people to stand around staring and laughing at me. They'll be staring at me too, I said, but I'm still going. Fine, Connor said. I'll tell you what, if you play your guitar, I'll come and watch. My throat suddenly felt dry. Juice box, please, I whispered, and Connor obliged. I took a swig and cleared my throat. I'm not performing at the festival. I would never perform in public for anything. Then I'm not coming, Connor said stubbornly. Darn it! He knew I wouldn't perform, and that was his way out. Why won't you play for anyone, Avon? Zion said. I shrugged. I don't want people watching me up there. Watching the freak is what I wanted to say. Why not? Zion said. You acted in a play in a stage in front of people. That was different. I was in a silly cactus costume. If you don't know me, you would not have known that I didn't have arms. Doing stuff with my feet in front of a crowd, performing with my feet, that's just different. I'd feel like I was in a circus or something. That's silly, Zion said. No one would think of you like that. But I knew he was wrong.